let's go ahead and go to our next location, which is not Aerith, Ethermind. Ethermind. Man, I can't say words today. Hey guys, Luxker here. This is part 2 of the Xenoblade areas tier list that I'm doing with Yggdrasil. If you haven't watched part 1 already, I recommend checking out the video that is linked into the card, because we're going through a lot more areas here than the previous video. So I just wanted you guys to know that. Without further ado, let's get going. So let's go to the Central Factory, which a lot of people really enjoy Mechonis for what it is. Especially like just its middle area. I would say Mechonis would probably be at the low end of B tier, specifically because like it just feels so linear and there's not a lot of cutscenes in there. There is a place where you blow up a wall and like where you can get Fiora's ultimate weapon, but like in general, the Central Factory just doesn't have much besides that. I guess you can make an argument about, like, the Apocrypha fight, but that, even then, the Apocrypha fight just doesn't really strike me as anything special, so... But some of the greatest moments, like some of the cutscenes later on, appear in Central Factory, and they're all pretty great in general, so...
Yeah, I would be along the same lines. I could be along the same lines as that, because... it is a little linear in fashion. There's a few things to go off and check around. Like, you can do some little bit of platforming, or you can go to the side and then you'll find the room where Vinea was fixing up the faces. So there's a few side things, but not all too much. I think it's more or less you're in line with the sort of rush and urgency the game has. You know, you gotta get through Central Factory, you gotta get to Yggdrasil as soon as possible. And then at the same time, it has one really good thing going for it, and it's just, you know, when you look at that chest and you see those whirring spires just going on in a circular fashion, and the little bit of sort of like sunshiny fog. I don't want to say like that, but it's like that atmosphere.
It's like the molten stuff coming right out from the chest or something like that.
Yeah,
Molten
so
like metal stuff.
So I'll give it the beauty of that. But yeah, a lot of people look forward to running through Central Factory each time. I don't know if I could say that I'm on that board, but I do enjoy it when I get there. It's like
the calm before the storm sort of thing. I didn't really enjoy Central Factory, but when you get to Yggdrasil, it gets so good. So.
So yeah, we'll stick it in B.
Yeah. So the city, I would say it's a really solid area for Xenoblade 3 standards. I'll put it in A tier. Here's the reason why. The city is like a really strong area, like lore-wise and story-wise in Xenoblade 3, because that's pretty much where like any human that wants to live a normal life can go to. Like, it's been like that for like hundreds of years. Who knows how much Ionios was there, but the city was just there from the beginning, and it just keeps reforming, just like the rest of the people outside of the city are like. It's very evocative of the sort of theme Xenoblade 3 carries. And just the city itself that we see on Sword March, and then later on in a different area under Ionios. It's really solid. It's such a great antithesis on like Origin, especially because it's a giant sphere-like circle with a city encased in it, and Origin is basically the same way, but like to a more physical aspect of it, and it's such a differentiating area from the rest of Xenoblade 3 as well. So I'd say it's one of the most solid like regions in any Xenoblade game in general. So I would stick it in A tier, like just high mid A tier.
Now, are we saying like higher than even Igniritha here?
Yeah, Yeah, for sure. It's so much better. Well, we can explore pretty much everything in the city compared to Agnirtha, where we can only explore part of it, though.
See, I'm glad you agree with me there, because from what I've been seeing recently, there's just not a lot of people who can appreciate what city offers. And I have to agree with you. It's so differentiating. It's purposely differentiating. It's unlike any other place that Ionios offers, and it's meant to be that. It's meant to be that haven. But what strikes it for me as well is within that haven, you know, there's some political conflicts between the six houses, and you get there and you're the outlier. No, everyone's like, why are you here? You took Ouroboros from us. Like, can we really depend on people who are just gonna die anyway?
Right. There's just so much drama going in the city as well. It just makes it even more interesting.
And then they're trying to lay it low. It's like, explore for a while, find out about us, find out about what we are. You want to see how babies are made. It's also tastefully done that it just really adds to it. And I do agree. City is just that one beautiful outlier in Xenoblade 3 that I'm happy to go back to as compared to most other colonies within that game.
No, I couldn't agree more. The city is just such a underrated just area in Xenoblade in general. Like, just how it ties into the themes so well. And especially like where we found the founder statues and people were speculating on that as well. It's just such a very memorable area in that aspect. So probably like definitely goated area in Xenoblade 3 for sure. So let's go ahead and go to the Cliffs of Mortha. On its own, it's not really the greatest area. There are some great moments at the very end of Cliffs of Mortha, probably one of the best moments in the game. But just on its own, you got a lot of skill checks that you have to go through. You have to go through a lot of annoying enemies and stuff. Like, and it's like extremely short as well, and like risk of falling off and stuff. I don't think it's a really great area in Xenoblade 2, I'll be perfectly honest. So
yeah, I don't find it all too enjoyable either. Definitely the ending is there for that section that is just peak for Xenoblade, but in this one the journey is not all too good. When you get there, when you get to that destination, then yes. But the journey itself, not so much. A lot of linearity. You called out just right. Those skill checks. I don't look forward to doing Morth every time, even though it's relatively short. I'm just not a fan of it.
Yeah. Chapter 7 is one of my favorite chapters in Xenoblade 2. And when just going through the Cliffs of Mortha, I remember just having to start, like, from a long ways back if you happen to just fall down and die, and then you have to go back to a previous landmark, and it's just
and some of those landmarks aren't those. Yeah, they're not in a good spot. I agree. There's only one or two I would argue that are decent, but not all too much.
Yeah, it's just like such a trek to go through the first time, and I just don't really look forward to that. And especially jarring from like one of my favorite areas in Xenoblade 2 in general, which we'll eventually get through in probably like another 40 minutes. Who knows? It's a lot. We got like a lot of time here. So our next area, I would say, is also probably like another high C tier area, and that's Colony 6. There isn't really much going on over there. Like, we just go there, go to the Ether Mines, come back up, and like do other things, then come back to do Colony 6 reconstruction, and just head on out. Like, it's just not a particularly interesting area, like, at the beginning. It gets better, like, at the last third of the game, but, like, all I remember just going to this area is just doing the Colony 6 reconstruction stuff, and, like, a bunch of side quests in there as well. It's just not, like, a particularly interesting area just to, like, explore, because it's just so small.
If I had to argue, I wish we could put Colony 6 pre-construction and Colony 6 like post 100% completion. But even then, you'd only be spending time in the colony itself and not the zone around it, which is At best. I have some personal trauma collecting the items off the Wisps early game for, I believe her name is Olga. Yeah, that NPC wants some wisps and
Ah,
she wants like 6 of them, and it's just like, oh, such a mess.
yeah,
Yeah, I've had bad luck.
those wisp beads are just extremely hard to find from those, and like I think like 3 or 4 quests need those wisp beads. So I always remember having
Yeah.
to just grind over there just for those wisp beads. But
Yeah, but then as you work on reconstruction and the zone picks up more beautifully, you want to stay inside Colony. I like chilling in Colony 6 when it's fully reconstructed. That's just me. I would definitely say
I mean, there's
I
some
would
pretty
also
great moments. Like one of my favorite moments in Xenoblade 1 happens in Colony 6 with the Mel face encounter and Dunban just coming in and Dixon just doing their thing and just helping us and stuff. But like,
and then even after there's also the talk with Melia and Fiora. Yeah, no, just the cutscenes itself in 6 are pretty fine in all honesty.
it's just not the greatest area just to go around really, and that's why we chose to have it like probably at high C tier for me. So
Yeah.
on the total opposite though, Colony 9 is such an iconic area of Xenoblade 1 in general that I don't think it could go anywhere else besides A tier. And like you've got Outlook Park, you've got like the wreckage site where Shulk started the game with. Like we got all the anti-air batteries and stuff. It's such a great beginning area and a beginning town pretty much in any video game I've played. It's such a great area to come back to for side quests as well. Like Gem Man's stall is there. And then Shulk's lab, you can do a few things there. I don't know. Colony 9 is such a memorable area in Xenoblade in general, and having it probably at A tier is probably the safest bet, I'll be perfectly honest. So
I think it did a really wonderful job of setting, again with Xenoblade games, the scope and size and the feeling that if you see it, you can go there. I think it handled that just quite wonderfully. And then to see such like a beautiful town and really exploring every like nook and cranny of it. A lot of NPCs in Colony 9 are very memorable and endearing to me. And it's just it's such a wonderful starting experience, Colony 9.
I would say though, I would put it in a higher A tier if it wasn't for going to Agora Shore. That's like the only like reason.
True that.
There's no fast travel point over to at Agora Shore.
And you would
It's
expect
just
there to
so-
be one too.
Yeah, I know.
You
You
would
go
expect
there
one.
like a few times, so I know it's kind of rather nitpicky. I would probably keep it at low A tier, regardless.
No,
of
that's a
that,
solid
so-
nitpick. Yeah, it's a solid nitpick. I would say right below Bionis Leg, in my opinion.
Right.
Actually, no, I'm gonna raise it above Bionis Leg.
No,
Because it's a Bionis Leg with things to do.
Oh no, I totally agree, and that's where I put it. So, all right. So next up is Elysium, which Chapter 10 in Xenoblade 2 is such a memorable chapter to me, and like it has a whole bunch of other things going on. It's such a desolate area. The church is such a such a nice serene area, but it was originally just such a green and grassy area just from like Rex's point of view and like in flashbacks and whatnot. And then when you go there, it's such a desolate area. It's such a huge contrast, and and there's like broken up playground equipment there. There's just it's such a metaphor for like what Klaus has done to the world and what he's done to just this place in general, that like memories just can't be found in this area. And it was originally a place that like everyone just came from and got along with together, but it just didn't turn out to be the case. And the only remaining thing that's standing is with that being the church, is just so evocative of just Xeno and just Xenoblade in general. just the church just standing tall and ringing its bell, trying to get Rex and his friends to come over there to talk with Klaus. And the whole rest of Elysium, after the whole Klaus stuff, is just it's just so tense, just leading up to the final fight of the game, like having to fight those robots that I can't remember what they're called. But it's just such a strong area to me in Xenoblade 2 that I just can't help but going back to. So I would put it like probably in low S tier. What do you think?
Yeah,
Jake?
I think that's the first statement. All of Elysium, all of the world tree itself, you go in there to see it's just a to see its mechanical interior, raising it all the way up. Um, the stakes grow higher as you climb. You realize it's just it's like, what is going on? This isn't it's not clearly a tree. I mean, it is in the metaphorical sense. Yeah, and of course I share my name with it, Yggdrasil, and the world tree Yggdrasil. But then getting to Elysium itself, building up from all of that, and then you get to Elysium and it betrays your expectations. You're not in paradise. You're in this arid hellscape that's just a forgotten memory. The church bell ringing is in the distance for no one. It's very somber. It betrays everything that the cast has worked up to. And, getting to the promised land only for it to not be what you expected is a pretty common staple. But you to see how Xenoblade 2 worked it out, then you go down to find this sort of extra passage leading down to Klaus himself. I'd have to say, I'd have to agree, it's a wonderful zone.
Right.
I wouldn't personally say S though. I would say A, but yeah.
I just think it's such a I think it's just such a memorable area once you reach like chapter 10, and it just hits you, just this huge area that just like is so desolate, and you're just expecting it to just be so perfect. And I especially remember this on my first playthrough of how like empty I felt just going over there and just exploring, and like all the characters just have something to say about how desolate Elysium is. I just find that such a memorable part of Xenoblade 2 in general. So I'm gonna put it in low S tier for that reason. I would say if it would be higher if you can like explore more, but like at low S tier is such a safe area, just a safe place for it.
Alrighty.
And now we go to Era C. It's such a fantastic like water area. I love the floating islands, and I just love how huge it is, especially. I think it's one of the better Xenoblade 1 areas personally. I just love the atmosphere with like the sky sometimes when they're shooting stars and rain. It has such a nice atmosphere. I know a lot of people don't like having to go through the whole entire map just by swimming just to fill the whole map out. Guys, you could just do that by just finding every location. You don't have to just go through the water and fill it out and waste like
guilty.
hours. Hours
Guilty. I
just
did
going
that
through
for my first time.
Oh, wow.
First time, come on, fresh out of high school, the game is not really known. I didn't know that aspect. I didn't pick up on that.
So that's what I did.
I knew that, and I still haven't just went through the whole entire heresy. Maybe one day for a future video, I'll just like do something with that. But Eric, man, I really enjoy like just like even like the islands that are on the ground are just such a memorable area. Like I remember a few unique monsters that are on there that are memorable, like Hodes and
the
like,
Hode Island.
The Hode Islands, and like a few like the Chromars, and like one of the areas. Like you remember Stormy Belkanon, right?
Oh yeah.
That had that annoying sleep spike. That was really annoying, but it was fun at the same time because like you can have one character with high sleep resist gems on it, and you can just grind affinity just from that unique monster alone. It was great. And it also has a lighthouse, and I'm a pretty big sucker for lighthouses, so Yeah, I would say Air C is just a mid A tier. So, what do you think?
Yeah.
Jake?
I would put it higher on the A tier because I just always go back to, again, a C on the head of the Bionis, and it challenged my imagination the first time to think of it. And it's like, it's like we're here on two giant titans, and then Earth Sea, honest to God, blew me away seeing the floating capital and the floating islands. But then you see it at nighttime, and if you're lucky, the aurora hits. I'm gonna raise it up a notch. I'm gonna put it between Bionis Shoulder and the city. That's
Yeah,
where I'm gonna put it.
that's where I put it too, because yeah, you're right. Especially in Frontier Village, like you see the water on the very top of Frontier Village, and like you
The
always
most faint
wonder,
hint of it.
you always wondered what is up there, and you see like just a huge amount of space. It like once you go through it, like you originally thought like it's a small little puddle in the sky. No, it's expansive. And it has floating islands, like so much water, and like has a lot of oh yeah, I should also remember it has wind turbines on it as well. It has like the islands are very island-like.
A lot of those
expansive.
islands do have things
Going
do have gimmicks or things.
Yeah, just going through a lot of coves in the middle just to find secret locations. Like it's such a nice area to explore, even with it being so huge. So. But yeah, I agree. It should be in like high mid A tier. So let's go ahead and go to our next location, which is not Aerith, Ethermind. Ethermind. Man, I can't say words today. I said at the beginning of this video that I don't really care for a lot of Xenoblade 1 locations, and the Ethermind is pretty evocative of that. It's pretty well known within the community as well that it's just not the greatest area in the world, especially like you can't even go back to the later half after you're done with it. You're just stuck with the beginning half, which is just a huge confusing maze on its own. Nothing really stands out to me here besides just a big giant turbine in the middle near the end of it, and just a bunch of ether caves. And that's pretty much it. Really, I don't know. The cutscenes in there are like some of my favorites in the entirety of Xenoblade 1, and I find it funny that our favorite cutscenes are in our least favorite areas. Like we got, especially in Colony 6 and C tier, we got the metal face fight, and then Cliffs of Mortha, we got the peak ending of it all. And then Ethermind has a lot of great cutscenes that are spread out through it, like Shulk thinking about he has to confess these visions for the most part. Like he's wondering what people are gonna think of him when he confesses it all. And then Ryan comes in just saying, "Hey, don't worry. You have to speak your mind to us, and then that's how you get through here." Which I find that to be a pretty memorable moment. Otherwise, the Ethermind is just kind of eh. Also, at the very end, Juju gets crucified too, so that's one of the books.
Yeah, no, another Juju rescue mission. Count me out. I made my statements on Etherminds when I tried bringing up the parallel with Violence Interior. It's definitely the better of the two. I think it's okay. I think it's fair, but it's not particularly memorable. It's very straightforward. It's just a grind spot when you get to the central area. And that's really all I gotta say on it, It's good for a couple levels in the mid-20s to get you up to Zord. That's all. That's all it is. I'm gonna put it, I would say right above Agnes Castle region, because at least there's a few things to do and a few bits to explore of the Ethermine.
I personally would just put it up on high D tier, I'll be perfectly honest.
Yeah, you'd rather the one room of Agnes Castle region above all of Ethermine?
I mean, remember, Agnes Castle region has the best cutscenes in Xenoblade 3.
Yeah.
So,
okay, you know what?
So
fair.
Hard. It's just so hard to say, so.
Fair. I'm going to put it personally on my end, on the bottom of C. I think Bionis Interior deserves its own punishment zone.
Oh, yeah. I don't know about that, though.
Yeah, alrighty.
Now, the Fallen Arm, I honestly think it's probably like a mid, maybe a, no, I think it's mid B tier, area. It, nothing really stands out to me. It's just like a pretty decent like area to explore and nothing else. Love how basically the area is just laid out as just a giant hand, but like the only thing I can just picture in the area is just the distant fingertip and like the Machina village in the middle and all the stuff that you can do over there, which isn't like a lot of side quests in Xenoblade 1, but still I think it's just a more middling area in Xenoblade 1. Not to hurt on it a lot. I really enjoy the areas of Xenoblade 1. But there's like a hit or misses, and the Fallen Arm is kind of in between, so.
Yeah.
For me, when I think of Fallen Arm, I think of those starting cutscenes when you're there between the different sects of the group, especially Dunban, Melia's, and Ricky's. So that bumps it a bit for me. I think the beach area as well, Shulk and Fjord is where they landed. That beach stands out to me as well. But I agree, you know, we got the hidden village, and then we have the distant fingertip holding it. And again, you know, the scale of Xenoblade 1 fits in so well, just climbing for minutes on end to reach that distant fingertip. But then you look down and you see like the whole region spread out over the palm of the Titan's hand. Yeah, very beautiful. And then looking at Bionis from the fingertip itself, you know, it elicits a lot of feelings in me, I gotta be honest. I would also put it in B tier though. For all of that though, I would put it also in B tier. I'll say above Argentum for me personally. Actually, no.
I put it under Black Mountains.
Yeah.
Above Central Factory. I'd say it's mid in that area, so.
Yeah, I'll put it smack in the middle. Slightly better, like slightly less to do than Argentum, obviously, but very beautiful zone.
All right. Next up is the Fortis region. The Fortis region. I don't know if you will agree with me on this, Yig. I'd say it's probably like one of the most interesting areas in Xenoblade 3, just for the fact that it's split up to 3 areas. Like in the middle, you have the Aegis Wilderness. On the east side, there's the Na Desert, and on the west is what's it called? That foggy area with the Hidden Machina Village music. I'll probably edit something on screen just to show what it is, because I can't remember on it. But we were just talking about the distant fingertip. This is a better way to portray the distant fingertip to me. You can see pretty much the whole entire like Dana Desert and the Aegis Wilderness from the distant fingertip.
It's all there, and then you can keep going south. You can keep going more south still, and you reach even further areas.
The southern area, like those 2 areas.
Ribby Flats.
Yeah, Ribby Flats, and there was one other area. Like, it's such a huge area that is like rich in like so many different kinds of biomes, and they all like fit in so well in this area. I'd say it's a pretty high up there just for that alone. So
yeah, I would argue in the A tier. Maybe not Colony 9 level, but above Bionis Leg without a doubt. So much to do, so much to explore. A lot of different themes playing on there, a lot of environmental choices playing on there. So yeah, that's where I'd put it.
Yeah, and like it's got some of my favorite colonies as well, like Colony
430 Iota.
Oh yeah, 430 and Iota. Yeah, all of those are really good. I mean, a lot of people just don't really like the colonies because of like how it just doesn't have its own central theming to it. But I enjoy it for how they are really, and they fit in with their environments very well, especially with Colony 30, how it's just enclosed in that one cave. So.
Yeah, I think all the asset reuse weighs on a lot of people, but when I think of placement environmentally, I think it makes sense. Actually, though, I do think Colony Iota is the weakest of the colonies in terms of setup and design, but 30 itself to be placed in that cave, and four has reasons for being stationed out there that fit into the story. So I think those make sense.
It's pretty central to the Forest region, which, like, we already know that, like, Mobius wanted to just try to get at it the most. So, personally,
Yeah.
So, and yeah, anything else to say about the Forest region? I really love Dana Desert, by the way. I love how it's just portrayed in general, even though it's kind of like the short area. It's such a Breath of the Wild like area, I'll be perfectly honest. But I find it better than a lot of Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom's areas because of just
I couldn't make
how
sense
rich
of
them all are.
Yeah, I couldn't make sense of the day theme, but when that night theme hits and you get a lot more of that Tornin instrumentals playing in that theme, I felt right at home there. It was beautiful to explore. I gotta be completely honest. So yeah.
All right, I'd say Fornus is pretty good there. So let's go ahead and go on to Frontier Village, which
S tier. S
oh
tier.
yeah,
S tier for me. I'll get in.
I'll be the one to start off on this one. S tier, and anyone who says otherwise that Frontier Village does not deserve to be an S tier, I am sorry. Frontier Village is the epitome childhood dream of a town sprawling within the insides of this giant tree that goes up for layers and layers and layers. It's brilliant. I gotta be honest. The music is so warm and inviting. The climb inside and around the tree to reach the top, but the village itself is hustling and bustling.
yeah.
It's so endearing. Anyone who says anything less than an A, I'm sorry, you're wrong. But for me, it's an S.
I would say Frontier Village is pretty great overall. I really enjoy all the cheerfulness and like the Napon singing and like just having it feeling so alive and full of itself. Like it has some of the more memorable and funny moments in the game, especially cutscene wise, and like the music is also really nice as well. So yeah, I would say it's high A tier for me just from that alone. And like the Napon trading side, or not trading, but the Bana side quest in there mainly takes place in Frontier Village, and we got excited like the pretty great boss fight at the end too. And like I distinctly remember the side quest where like the Napon is trying to get to her lover at the bottom of the tree that is by that one pool, and you have to just decide if you want to make that one Napon on top of the tree grow bigger with a pollen I believe, or just to have his girlfriend just grow bigger so you can catch that Napon, so the Napon won't die. And that side quest alone is just so memorable to me. There's a lot of memorable side quests in Frontier Village, especially for Xenoblade 1 standards, which isn't saying much because a lot of the side quests aren't typically the best in that game, but I digress. So
yeah, but I definitely think it's fantastic as a zone. One of my favorites.
Yeah.
That's my bias. So for my bias, I'm throwing it an S.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, high A tier for me. I think it's good just being right there. So, now let's go to Galahad Fortress. And I know we keep saying that like a lot of the Mechonis areas are pretty mid in general. I'm gonna be perfectly honest, pretty good area on its own. Just
I'm 100% with you.
Tier, so the music's great, especially that sticks out to my mind, and like having to go through multiple levels and having to stop like the ether and trying to save Fiora, especially. I think when you get here is when the game really wants you trying to save Fiora from Egil himself, and once you reach the very end, it just kind of all collapses on its own in a good way. So I really enjoy that part of Galahad Fortress personally.
Yeah, the end of Galahad itself was really strong, and then Both for Galahad and Sword Valley, I sort of think of our team as like an early infiltration unit, there to sow as much chaos as possible. So I definitely think that is the case. I would say it's fair, yeah. Low B.
Now, I've been thinking about this for a bit, and I don't know how you feel about me just where I place it in the tier list, Yig. I think Gormott Province is the best starting area in Xenoblade, just in general. Higher than Gaur Plain and, like, higher than freaking Aegis Wilderness. And I'll be honest, Aurora's Shelf doesn't come close to it. And, by the way, I'm counting Gormott both in Torna and Xenoblade 2, which both of them are equally as great, I feel, in terms of their style and storytelling. But let me start with Xenoblade 2 first. I know people
I'm interested to see.
I know people love to complain about, like, the whole map, and I agree. That's, like, one of my least favorite parts about Gormott is, like, the map itself is just hard to navigate because of how many levels there are on this Titan. Like, I was very surprised just of how, like, versatile this Titan is for a beginning area and how much there is to explore on it your first time around. And it gets even bigger when later on in the game, doing some of the side missions and whatnot. Some of the Chapter 4 stuff, which is okay, like, I'd say it's alright, but, like, there's other things as well. Like, I really love Torrigoth. I think that's, like, one of the best areas, personally, in Xenoblade, because it's such a strong starting area, like Colony 9, but it's rich in just, like, diversity in general. It's not just Gormati living there, but, like, well, mostly Gormati, but there's also Ardanians living there, and, like, the agriculture in there is really nice to see, and especially the way they try to do their agriculture there, and, like, having to explore just using, like, the tides of the Cloud Sea just to explore everywhere, and it's just such a great area to go through. Like, every time, even though I really don't like how the map is, it's just such a great time just exploring Gormott. Like, one of the more fun areas in the game just to go through.
I would give it a bump up, definitely due to just Torrigoth, 100%. I prefer Base 2's version over Torna's, if I have to be honest. But I don't think it deserves S personally, but I think definitely the high end of A. I personally think Shoulder is better, but again, Torrigoth being that strong contender.
I think the Bionis Shoulder is such a great area in Future Connected. I just think Gormott, like, is just such more expansive. Well, it's smaller in scope, but I just I feel like it just sticks out in my mind as, like, the tentative Xenoblade grassy area that is just fun to go around and explore in, like, caverns and whatnot, just like in Bionis Shoulder. And there's just so many levels to go through. Man, it's just hard to choose, though.
It is with a lot of these, you know.
Now going to Torna, I actually should disagree. I really enjoyed what Gormott in 500 years ago looked like. Like, you can expect it to not be as big as it is 500 years later, and it's such a nice area for what it is. It has some great it has a great remix as well. Like, both Gormott's themes are fantastic, and also the desolation of Torrigoth especially got to me. Like, you would expect just an area that we know so well, like, get to me so hard. So, like, especially on repeat playthroughs, it got to me even more. It's mainly because I like Laura a lot, but at the end, it's just so strikingly sad. So,
No, I can agree. For me, it's more or less I enjoy Torrigoth and remember everything from Torrigoth a lot more. That seeing it so dour hurts me. Obviously, it's in the past and it's thriving now, which is better, but you know.
For sure. Alright guys, this will be the end of part 2. Join us next week as we will continue part 3 and part 4 the week after. Also, I would like to know, how will you rank the areas in Xenoblade? Let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be notified on when part 2 is going to come out, which is going to be coming out the next week after. But yeah, go ahead and check out Yggdrasil's content. He does a lot of Xeno series videos, and he recently put out a video on the release date on the Noah and Neo amiibos. He's very active on YouTube, and I highly recommend checking out his channel. Until then, guys, see you on the other side!